The women around the Mafia boss, Corbin Fisher, changed every 3 days. But I was an exception. I stayed by his side for over a month. Just when everyone thought that Corbin's Mafia empire was about to have a female owner, I escaped back to my home country and started live streaming. The Mafia boss's trusted psychotherapist reveals all, sharing what she saw and heard during his treatment, insider information of the underworld, all kinds of gossip. You hit the jackpot just by listening. That night, I made a fortune by talking nonsense. When I check again, the top donor in the live streaming chat room turned out to be Corbin Fisher. Great, he found me so quickly. I was not far from death. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When I transmigrated into this novel, I was in a car heading to Corbin Fisher's mansion. The car passed through the congested streets and gradually opened up. I knew we were not far from the mansion, which also meant that I was not far from death. In the novel, Corbin Fisher is ruthless and murderous, the head of the Mafia. And in the novel, I am a cannon fodder psychologist who gets shot in the head by him in the early chapters. I patted the burly man next to me, who was holding a gun, feeling a bit short of breath. "Excuse me, I'm feeling unwell. Can you take me to the hospital?" The big guy tightened his grip on the gun and glanced at me, finally uttering a few words in Italian. "I don't understand your language." I tried to communicate with him again. "Sorry, now I am not comfortable. I was interrupted by the co-driver halfway through. "Don't play tricks. Even if you're dying, you have to see Mr. Fisher for treatment first today." The scarred face of the co-driver was reflected on the car window. Although I couldn't see his real face clearly, the bloody plot description of the scarred face Harry in the book made me shudder involuntarily. Halfway through the car journey, the burly man next to me put a blindfold on me. Then we bumped all the way to the villa in the jungle. The villa was heavily guarded, and hundreds of people were patrolling with guns wherever they could be seen. In the unseen areas, there was an even more sophisticated security network, ready to deal with any dangerous elements immediately. I obediently followed Scarface's footsteps and twisted and turned to a house where heavily armed men stood at the door. He knocked on the door and shouted to the people inside, "Mr. Fisher, Maggie Gray is here." Then came a distant male voice, "Come in." At the same time, there was a bang from inside the room, accompanied by a scream. Harry quickly entered the room, while I trembled and followed behind him. A person lay on the ground, brain matter mixed with blood flowing on the floor. He wasn't even dead yet, struggling instinctively to get up with his hands on the ground, and the sexy beauty next to Corbin was so scared that she sat on the ground. I turned my head away, too afraid to look at the bloody scene again. "Scared? With such poor mental resilience, how can you treat me?" Corbin's voice was 3 parts teasing, 7 parts disdainful, but his expression remained indifferent as always. Then he actually put the gun to my head, and I was already scared silly. "We have already completed 1 course of treatment before, but my personal physical condition has not improved at all. Dr. Gray, are you just wasting my time?" As a top psychological counselor, I believe this is a quantitative change before a qualitative change. I am confident in solving your psychological problems. In order to save my life, I started to talk big, even though I was just a psychology student who had only studied counseling superficially. Corbin dragged me to the person with the gunshot wound and threw a knife at me. "Chop him into pieces, and I will give you the opportunity to continue the treatment." I looked at Corbin in disbelief and pointed at myself. "Me?" He remained calm and said, "Isn't empathy the most important thing for a psychological counselor? You have never even killed a person. How can you empathize with me?" I took a deep breath and made a heart shape with my hands. "Because I have an empathetic heart." Corbin suddenly smiled, then picked up the knife from the ground and held it against my chest. He looked at me seriously. "I want to see your empathetic heart. Can I, Dr. Gray?" Corbin was unable to communicate like a madman. I knew my death was coming, so I just went crazy. "Looking at everything will only harm you. You just watch too much dirty stuff, and that's what makes your mind dirty and twisted." Corbin and Harry were stunned, and the sexy beauty was also stunned. While Corbin was stunned, I quickly said a few more words before I died. "You, as a beast, seeking a psychological counselor while pretending to be human, even God can't save you." Corbin put down the knife, repeating over and over, "Even God cannot save me." Then a flash of murderous intent passed through his eyes. "Then why do you think you can save me?" The knife in Corbin's hand tore through my clothes and pierced my flesh. I gritted my teeth in pain, my mind went blank, and I began to talk nonsense. "Because I am the heiress of witches." Corbin frowned, looking puzzled. I knew he was confused, so I continued to speak, continuing to persuade him. "For those whom God cannot save, witches can. Since psychology is of no use, why don't we believe in supernatural abilities?" Corbin finally took the knife off me. "Do you have superpowers?" Of course not, but I still nodded. After all, I had read this novel, and I can be considered to have a third eye, able to know about the past and the future. I am an 18th generation witch in the United States. I can extrapolate the past and predict the future. It's just a piece of cake for me to tell fortunes. Corbin stepped closer and pointed at the body on the ground, then figure out why he died. I walked around the body, trying to make myself look eccentric, and then tried hard to recall the plot. Finally, I concluded that the cause of this person's death was Corbin's mother, because this man recklessly said some damn words that insulted Corbin's mother. And in Corbin's Corbin's heart, he would never allow anyone to insult his mother. Have you figured it out, Maggie Gray? I cleared my throat. He clashed with the elders in his fate, probably offended your elders. I'm injured now, so I can only predict up to this point. In the first few chapters of the novel, Corbin still wanted to recover his health through psychological counseling, but later, he couldn't escape the torment of his original family, and he directly let go of himself and became a complete pervert. The family was always a part of Corbin that couldn't be mentioned. The more I talked, the greater the chance of pissing him off, so I did not continue to say more. Harry, go check it out. Corbin waved his big hand, and Harry nodded and stepped out. Then a few people came in and cleaned up the body, and also took away the sexy beauty. Before I could react to what Corbin wanted to check, he sat down on the chair and casually spoke. If I find out that you are not a descendant of a witch from 18 generations, I'll chop you up and feed you to the dogs. I felt like crying, but had no tears. I only knew that I was a cannon fodder in this novel. But as for the specific character setting in the book, I was completely in the dark. I think only a fool of an author would write me as a descendant of a witch from 18 generations. I was doomed, and the fate of cannon fodder couldn't be changed. Aren't you gonna come over and treat me? Corbin waved his hand, indicating for me to sit on the sofa next to him. I asked for a coin from him, casually tossed it, and then looked at his palm. As my hand was about to touch his hand, he immediately pulled back. He didn't like others touching him. I looked at Corbin's slender hand and began to fool him. Have you been sleeping poorly lately? From a psychological point of view, it's because of too much stress, and from a supernatural point of view, it's because you've killed too many lives. Let me help you drive away the evil spirits around you and ensure you have a good night's sleep. Corbin stood up and gestured for me to follow him. He made some moves at the bookshelf and a secret room appeared. I pointed at myself. Do you really believe me like this? Just as I was smug, thinking that Corbin believed me and wouldn't want to kill me, he suddenly spoke. If I still can't sleep tonight, you will become a corpse tomorrow, and it won't bother me even if you see it. I quickly retracted my smug expression. I want to see your mother. As soon as the words left my mouth, Corbin turned around and grabbed my neck. He pressed my whole body against the wall and gradually lifted me up. When I spoke, I knew that this topic was bound to touch Corbin's antagonism, but I had no choice. Right now, only Corbin's mother could help me. She is your mother, the person closest to you. I need to personally ask some questions and take some things to set up a formation to drive away evil spirits for you. Corbin loosened his grip. Dr. Gray, you've changed. His tone was affirmative, which made me a little nervous. But the next moment, he still asked someone to take me to his mother's place. I organized my words all the way, thinking about how to persuade Kate Bell, Corbin's mother, so that she would help me. But when I got there, Kate Bell greeted me like an old friend and held my hand affectionately. It's been a long time since anyone has come here. Please stay and chat with me for a while. I listened to her talking about her boredom, how she could only pass the time with music, chess, calligraphy, and painting every day, without even touching electronic devices. She lived like someone from ancient times. She begged me to tell her more about the outside world, but under the surveillance of the bodyguards, I could only interrupt her and ask her some questions. Could you please tell me your birthday, Mrs. Bell? Kate Bell was taken aback for a moment, as if she hadn't expected me to interrupt her, but she still gently answered my question. The 7th of July. What about Corbin Fisher's? She tactically took a sip of water. His birthday? I don't remember. I only remember that I was trapped in the basement for a long time. When I gave birth to him, I didn't know what time it was or whether it was day or night. Mrs. Bell trembled, and I immediately hugged her, taking the opportunity to speak softly in her ear. I need some sleeping pills. Please help me. After she calmed down, we chatted for a while. The bodyguard began to urge me to leave. At this time, Mrs. Bell got up and walked to the refrigerator, put the milk in the microwave, and then went to the bathroom. When she came back, she handed me the milk. I haven't heated up milk for him in a long time. I don't know if he still wants to drink it. I guess that Corbin's mother had drugged the milk, so I took the cup of milk. He definitely wants to. I walked to the door with a smile, and at the moment of leaving, Mrs. Bell called out to me. I hope you can come to visit me more often. It would make me happier. I looked at her and nodded. If possible, I will come often. I carefully walked back to Corbin Fisher's bedroom with the milk. I placed the milk in front of him. Your mother specially heated it up for you. Drink it quickly. Corbin looked coldly at the milk, then glanced at me, making me feel very nervous. I thought he had found out about my secret plan, and I was sweating with fear. What's wrong? Corbin picked up the milk and drank it all in one go. Aren't you trying to exorcise evil spirits? I nodded and began to skip around the house, chanting words in my mouth. I was totally absorbed in skipping, but when I turned around, I heard Corbin's laughter. I turned around and saw him lying peacefully with his eyes closed on the bed. Is he asleep already? Just as I was at a loss, Corbin spoke suddenly. If you're done, then get out. If I can't sleep tonight, you're gonna die tomorrow. Damn it. What did you say? Corbin sat up and stared at me. I quickly explained. Have a nice dream, Mr. Fisher. I nodded and bowed as I left the secret room. Then I continued to push the door of the mansion to leave, but as expected, I was stopped. I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles in the room, thinking about how I would be killed tomorrow. In the the end, I was so tired that I lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. When the secret room door opened, it was still pitch black outside. I immediately got up in fear, afraid that Corbin hadn't fallen asleep last night and was going to kill me now. But Corbin left without saying a word. I was left alone, sitting there until dawn. I gathered my courage to go out, but I was stopped by a burly man. "Miss Gray, may I ask what you need?" The person outside the door was indifferent. I tried to make a request. "I'm a little hungry. Can you take me to eat something?" The bodyguard nodded. "Yes, you can wait here. We will bring the food to you." The bodyguard quickly brought me the food.